what has evolved in technology in CA? I know you use softwares, and softwares must have evolved. Tally and Zoho
Yes.
Books, all these companies have come up. Should we talk about that?
Yes, yes.
Yeah,
Very
or you
nice
wanna?
question
Yeah,
to understand how taxes has been traditionally being handled in India. See, our conversation all around India,
yeah,
so I would kind of try and focus how India has evolved in taxes.
yeah.
I did my articleship in the period of 2003-4. So it was 2000 to 2004. This was the period which was the transition period. So I have been fortunate enough to witness the traditional manual format as well as the online format.
Okay.
The juniors who were 3 to 4 years down the line to me didn't have the fortune to review or go through the manual process. If you have seen the manual process, you are in a much better way to appreciate the online ones. Just to give you an example, when I was doing my articleship and we were part of a firm where we were filing individual and audit tax returns, the whole scenario was, I would not say chaotic, but the technology was evolving. This was the period when use of computers was started. So it was not that we were preparing manual forms, it was all computerized, but the filing was manual. So we were a bit of a hybrid thing where we were not completely manual. We were using computers to prepare return, but we are submitting it to the income tax on a manual form. My predecessor or my partners who have been into practice since 1980s, they had those experience of using the typewriters and the manual forms where they were filled manually, then compiled manually and then submitted. So we have seen through the hybrid section, it was too much of a paperwork, it was time consuming, huge issue or challenge of accuracy,
Manual error. One
manual errors,
big,
yes, time consuming, huge man-hours were required, army of people was required. So just to give you an example, when I say 31st July is the deadline, the requirement was to have your tax forms filled. It could be manually handwritten or pre-printed. Attach it with your balance sheets, your proof of investments.
bank statement.
Today the government has access to your investments, as I said, through AIS. Back then it was not there. So government didn't knew that you actually invested. So you need to prove yourself that okay, I've invested in this tax incentive and hence I'm eligible for this. So I need to provide those receipts. So it could be huge bunch of papers to be submitted. So there was a manpower who's doing the data entry, someone who's printing it and arranging the sets. Then there were peons and people who used to run to the income tax offices. There was huge line near the due dates. Everyone was rushing to submit their returns on time. And there was an acknowledgement given. Post that acknowledgement, government had a huge task of computerizing that data because it's on manual format. So they need to enter the data to analyze the returns and check the accuracy. So use of manpower on both sides. To complete chaos.
Yeah.
During the last days, I have seen, being a chartered accountant or an article at those stages, we used to take taxis and run around from one income tax office to the other for those submission. On the last 2-3 days, there were mandaps and shamianas being built outside income tax offices. All of the manforce sitting on counters, alphabetically sorted. So you need to find your right jurisdiction.
Okay.
So you can't just go to any income tax and submit your papers. You need to go to the right officer. So huge challenge in finding the right officer, going to his desk, submitting, and as usual government employees were accustomed to reviewing data and finding faults at that page. So then if you not attach something, they will say okay, they'll throw it across. यार ये नहीं लगा बरोबर नहीं लगा फिर से करके लेके.
And you miss the due date.
Huge challenges. So that was one era what we saw.
Now
2004-5 onwards the computerization started. There were initial hiccups in filing those tax returns. The website was new, the infrastructure was new, the government's infrastructure. The formats were new in how to report, when to report. But slowly, steadily, after all these years, say 2005 when it all started, the online filing. Currently, I would say it is hugely seamless, very convenient. There were times initially, the manpower what we invested in manual submission, when it became online, there was another challenge of getting the right bandwidth. The internet speeds at that point in time, 2006, 2008, what speeds what we are getting now, the access to internet was
Not
very
there.
slow. There was MTNL connection. I don't know, youngsters would be aware that, you know, getting a internet was such a challenge that you had to have your MTNL, it was through MTNL or the telephone landline. And there were huge drops, and the kind of speed what
Have now.
we've seen, you know, it could be unimaginable for someone who's seeing the speeds of so huge GBPS or MBPS currently.
Yeah.
So getting the access to the income tax website on the due dates, getting through your returns and submitting in time was a huge challenge. I remember that we used to sit for 2 hours, 3 hours just to log into the income tax website to my login. You know, it went on circle, that buffering portion, and you know, after 2-3 hours or maybe 20 minutes, 15 minutes, it was completely crazy. And then you get access to your login, then you again upload the files and file returns. So that was one challenge. Currently, it's completely smooth, settled, much easy. So that's the whole process, what we've seen, evolution of technology. Yeah, I missed the bit about the AI now.
Yeah.
You know, this was the how computer or the filing process has evolved. Currently, government is extensively using AI in reviewing the data what you're filing. So where I said that when it was manual, so they could not review, you know, or analyze it or compare it with some benchmarks. Currently, there's a separate department of intelligence, Directorate of Intelligence, then there is technology intelligence. So there are multiple departments within income tax. As I said, the whole machinery in that point of time was involved in getting the returns and data entry. Now that is behind us and we have ready-made data in the government's database. So the whole army of officers which was there are still working with the government. What would they do now? So they are now analyzing the data what you're filing versus lot of other factors and identifying people who would have defaulted intentionally, unintentionally. So any kind of a mismatch, any kind of calculation error, any misreporting, non-reporting is easily detected through AIs. They are getting a lot of MISs internally and notices are being issued automatically. So the officer will get to know of, earlier the notices were issued by the officers. Do you want me to touch about the faceless assessments?
Please.
Yeah, please.
Yeah.
Okay, so when you say faceless, it is very clear about the intention of being a faceless, so you don't have a face of the officer or the tax authority. Earlier we used to meet them, there was a one-on-one interaction,
Not anymore.
there was a personal touch, there were relations being built, there were things being done differently at that point. Not anymore.
Okay.
The jurisdiction is now centralized. So the current scenario in the income tax is that once you file your return is, there's a central processing center at Bangalore, which processes all the tax return across India, CPC what we say, which is in Bangalore. So that's a computerized department which will process your returns. It will throw the basic challenges to you directly and you reply to it and it's all settled. The AI thing and the other scenarios, they would throw notices to you saying that, okay, there's a major flaw, and then you are liable to a scrutiny, which is a process. In that case, earlier when the scrutiny was supposed to come, you need to document all your evidences and present it to the officer, which was a hearing. You know, you would have served hearings or personal hearings. So you visit the officer, you explain the case to him, and he'll assess whether you are right, wrong, or whatever he wants to say, and then he'll pass an order. Currently, it is now faceless. So for example, you have faltered on a major way. You've not reported, say, gain, or you sold a property. There's a big property of 2 crores, 3 crores which you sold. Obviously, you would have earned out of it. You've not disclosed that earning in your return. So then your file will be open up for scrutiny. There would be a notice coming to you. The notice would come online. You are supposed to answer it through your login portal. So your login portal is of most important here. Everything is through that single portal. You report your answers or whatever you want to say about it. There you will get one hearing, personal hearing. That personal hearing is on a video conferencing mode, which is of the government's video conferencing mode. And you don't know the officer. So he may be able to see you, but his video is off, which is by default. So you're not able to identify who's the officer in front of you. You would be able to hear his voice. Second, earlier when I said there was a jurisdiction based taxes. So your officer sitting in Mumbai would assess you. Now it's all open. So the one which I said that will come faceless and to hear you, oral submission, he could be sitting across in Calcutta or maybe in Bihar or Delhi or Kerala. He could be anywhere. It's like an examination. Officer may have limited information about the SSC. He may not have all the information. He would just have pen. He may not know that this is the person whom I am assessing. Vice versa, I may not know who's the officer. So that building of relationship has gone.
Lack of human touch.
Lack of human touch. You can interact, but honestly, this has reduced the corruption, which is
Right.
bit of a prevalent over the years.
There's no bias now.
And no favor,
There's no bias.
no favors.
No favors, exactly. So you have limited chance of defending yourself.
It's good.
So if you are on the wrong side, there's a very good chance that you will not be able to avoid the taxes and the penalties.
Because you cannot influence the officer and the officer has nothing to gain from you. anyways.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And this started when, sir?
The faceless assessment 4 to 5 years.
Okay.
Exactly. It is being actually evolving over a period. They are introducing it in phases. So currently the first stage of assessment is faceless. There is a pipeline that even the appeals are going to get faceless. So when I say appeal means if you are not happy with the order of the assessing officer, you have an option of appealing it with the commissioner, then tribunal, and there are stages. So even those are now going faceless. Okay. So every year you would find new things coming up, new developments coming up.
This all comes in the technology evolution in accountancy. And,
So
yeah.
huge use of technology. Last 5 to 7 years has been, the changes what we saw over 10, 15 years. The last 5 years has seen much more faster and bigger changes than what we've seen over last 15 years before that.